You know, we hear so much about the green revolution, but what about the actual nuts and bolts that make it all happen? Today, we're going to dig into an earnings report, and what we found is a really fascinating story about the future of energy and about a company that's building the heavy-duty hardware the entire green transition depends on. So, let's get into it.
Okay, so here's the big picture, right? The whole world is trying to electrify, well, everything. We're swapping out our gas cars for EVs, or replacing fossil fuel furnaces with heat pumps, and we're powering it all with renewables to fight climate change. But all that clean electricity has to go somewhere. And that right there is where we slam into a massive, decades-old problem. Think about it. Our electrical grid, the entire circulatory system of our modern world, is old. It was built for a really simple job: move power one way from a few giant power plants out to everyone. It was never ever designed to handle the choppy, unpredictable two-way flow of energy from thousands of solar panels and wind turbines, and that creates a gigantic bottleneck.
And you know what they say, where there's a bottleneck, there's a massive opportunity. The market for upgrading this aging infrastructure is absolutely enormous. We're talking about a projected market size of almost 144 times billion dollars by 2028. This is the real gold rush of the green transition, and it's all about who can build the better hardware. And that brings us right to the company at the heart of all this, Quality Power, or as they're known, QPOWER. They are one of the key players engineering the exact solutions for this exact problem. So, who exactly are they? Well, this isn't some small startup. We're talking about a global operation. With about 1,500 employees, a bunch of manufacturing plants in India and Turkey, and they've got customers in over 100 countries. Their whole mission, their entire reason for being, is to build this critical gear. So what do they actually make? Well, you can kind of break their complex stuff down into two simple parts. First, you've got the brains. These are their power quality systems. They have these things called StatComs, which are basically like incredibly fast, digital shock absorbers. They instantly smooth out all the jerky power fluctuations from wind and solar to keep the grid perfectly stable. Then you've got the muscle, the power products. These are the giant transformers and reactors that can actually handle and direct these immense flows of high-voltage electricity. You absolutely need both to build the grid of the future. So, okay, they're in the right place at the right time. But are they actually executing? Let's take a look at their performance, because honestly, the numbers are just staggering. Get this, in the second quarter, their revenue more than doubled compared to last year, a 112.4% jump. That's not just growth, that's explosive expansion. It tells you the demand for their hardware is it's skyrocketing. But here's the really telling parts. Their profitability, their EBITDA, grew even faster, a jaw-dropping 193.4%. And that tells us they aren't just selling more stuff, they're getting way more efficient as they get bigger. That is the sign of a really, really healthy operation. And you can see that jump right here on the chart. I mean, look at that. They went from just over 1 billion rupees in revenue to almost 2.2 billion in a single year. That's what it looks like when a company is meeting the moment. So how on earth did they pull this off? I mean, a surge like this doesn't just happen by accident, right? It's the result of a really deliberate multi-part strategy. If you look at their history, you can see a clear pattern. They started way back in 2001, built up steadily, but the real acceleration started just recently. Look at that, key acquisitions starting in 2019, expanding into Turkey, and then a whole series of takeovers and going public just in the last couple of years. This is a company that's in full-on growth mode. We can really boil their whole strategy down to three main pillars. First, they're making smart acquisitions to quickly buy new tech and get new customers. Second, they are pouring money into massive factory expansions, so they can actually build enough stuff to meet this insane demand. And third, and this is really clever, they're not trying to invent everything themselves. They're partnering with global tech giants like Hyosung to build next-gen gear together. It's a classic build, buy, and partner strategy, and it is working. And hey, don't just take my word for it. The company's joint managing director, Mr. Panjian, said it himself. Their focus is on, quote, technology and automation to make them more agile and competitive globally. I mean, that's a direct confirmation of the plan we just laid out. So with that kind of incredible performance and a super clear strategy, the obvious question is, can they keep it up? Let's move on to their outlook and see what the future might hold. This number right here, this might be the best indicator of their future health. An order backlog of over 8.3 times billion rupees. What that means is they already have a massive pipeline of work that's already sold. This gives them incredible visibility into their revenue for months and even years to come. The demand is clearly not slowing down.
And they have a laser-focused plan for what's next. They're ramping up production of advanced stuff like HVDC components. That's the hardware you need to send huge amounts of power over long distances without losing it all. They're also expanding into things like gas-insulated switchgear, or GIS. Think of that as a whole substation shrunk down to fit in a closet, which is perfect for crowded cities. And all the while, they're still looking for new partners and acquisitions. It's more of the same successful formula.
So, okay, a successful company is having a great quarter. Why does any of this matter beyond just the stock price or the financial numbers? Well, let's zoom out one last time and look at the really big picture here. We are right in the middle of a fundamental shift from that old simple grid to a new, incredibly complex one. This new grid is the backbone of the entire green economy. It simply cannot exist without the kind of advanced hardware that companies like QPOWER are building. They are literally selling the picks and shovels in the green energy gold rush. You know, we love to talk about the promise of solar panels and wind turbines, but we often forget about all the essential, unglamorous hardware that's needed to stitch it all together. The green revolution isn't just an app or a policy, it is a massive industrial project. So the real question for the next decade is, who actually has the expertise and the manufacturing might to build it all?